Videotaped at the studios of City Video, it is time for Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells you the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition. And now here's the host of your show, Paul Stanford and Paul Loney.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. Our show is a production of our political committee, the Campaign for the Restoration and Regulation of Hemp, or CRRH. We are the sponsors of the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act petition, which is out there now circulating, so if you see it, sign it. We're the chief petitioners. I'm one, Paul Stanford.
I'm Paul Loney.
I'm Dr. Phillip Leveque.
That's right, and for this exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense, we're going to discuss the current state of medical marijuana here in Oregon and in the country. Because this is the cutting edge right now with cannabis and with hemp, is its medical use. This is where research, or at least compilation of reports, are being done nationwide, and a lot right here in Oregon. And so, what is the actual state right now, Dr. Leveque, of medical marijuana here in Oregon?
Well, what's going on right now is that a person who wants to use medical marijuana, in other words, has a disease process, which includes wasting disease of AIDS, multiple sclerosis, glaucoma, and some people even use it for various and sundry types of pain problems. And there is virtually, in particular in regard to pain. Pain is so subjective that there's no way for somebody to measure the degree of pain or the intensity of pain or even the relief of pain or anything else. There's just no way to do this. But if a person says, I have a bad back, or I have a bad this or a bad that, and I'm in pain, and that smoking marijuana helps, I don't think that anybody should deny them the right to use that. Now, what's going on in Oregon at the present time is that people who are using marijuana for medical purposes have to get some sort of a letter from a physician which says marijuana will alleviate the problem, pain, or whatever it might be for this individual. This letter is sent to the Oregon Health Division. Dr. Grant Higginson is the person who is the, I guess, he's not the director of the Oregon Health Division, but he's the number 2 person there. And the number 1 person is not a physician, but he is. So he is the one to whom these letters are addressed, and he is the one who will issue the equivalent of a marijuana user's license. Mm-hmm. Now, the strange thing about it is that it is still a federal offense to, in many respects, about the use of marijuana. So at the present time, nobody knows what's going to happen, but this hasn't prevented people who get benefit from the use of marijuana from using it. There are an estimated 100,000 people in the United States right now who admit to using it for medical purposes, and there are probably, as I understand it, around 10 million people, who use marijuana recreationally. Now, I think the so-called recreational use of this is a kind of a poor term, because I don't think people smoke tobacco for recreational purposes. I don't know why people smoke tobacco, but whether it's for recreational purposes or whatever it is, this is a sort of a strange terminology that is used. It's
like when they use alcohol, that's social drinking or something. Right?
Well, I suppose that's true. I've never heard of the social. Well,
recreational use of alcohol.
Yeah, recreational use of alcohol and the social use of marijuana. So the terminology here is very, very obscure or muddied or whatever the right word is.
Imprecise at the least.
Absolutely. Now, I think one of the strangest things about this is that the federal government raises marijuana
Yes.
in Mississippi. The federal government has it harvested and processed to make marijuana cigarettes. And there are 8 people in the United States who have letters of permission from the Drug Enforcement Administration to use marijuana for their medical purposes. Now, if 8 people can use it for medical purposes, for relief of their medical problem, why can't 9 or 10 or 1,000 use it? So it's a very, very strange situation. And a year and a half ago, I was one of 6 doctors who testified at the American Medical Association convention for the American Medical Association to stand behind the rights of patients to use marijuana for medical purposes. And this was passed by the House of Delegates of the American Medical Association in Dallas. The headquarters of the American Medical Association has, I don't know whether the word is they've sat on their hands or sat on their heads or whatever they've done, but they haven't done anything about it. And we 6 doctors have written a letter to the Journal of the American Medical Association as the equivalent of a letter to the editor asking why hasn't the American Medical Association taken a stand on this? Well, the first letter we wrote, they sent back that we're sorry, but we're rejecting it because we have too many other things to print in the magazine or something like that. And then about 6 weeks ago, the American, what is it, the Institute of Medicine?
Institute of Medicine.
The Institute of
National
Medicine
Academy of Science.
From the National Academy of Science came out, very highly publicized throughout the United States, that there was considerable evidence that marijuana was good for certain medical problems. And the American Medical Association has been strangely quiet about this, but in view of the Institute of Medicine, we 6 doctors again wrote a letter to the American Medical Association and the Journal of the American Medical Association say, the Institute of Medicine says that it has some benefit in medical purposes, and why should people who use it be thrown in jail for using it for medical reasons? So, as somebody pointed out a few minutes ago, we are at the cutting edge of this, and with the vote, I guess the last 2 elections we had for use of medical marijuana.
Yeah, November of '98 here in Oregon.
Yep.
And Washington and
Arizona.
Arizona, they voted on it for the second time.
Yeah.
They originally voted in 1996, along with California, to legalize medical marijuana.
And I think if I understand right, there are 6 states who have passed initiatives. Is that what it is? Or
Yes, 6, and then that's not counting the District of Columbia, where the United States federal Congress has not allowed that vote to be counted. Exit polls showed that it passed with 72%, but an amendment to an appropriations rider by Georgia Representative Bob Barr defunded the counting of that vote and said that the District of Columbia cannot count the vote on medical marijuana that was on their ballot.
Well, they didn't say they couldn't count. They were accurate. The federal government basically is the treasurer for the District of Columbia to handle the money, and they said they can't spend any money on it. Mm-hmm. And so that's,
Now they figured out that, since the machines already automatically tabulate it, that it would take about $1.67 of public money for them to count it, because it's already counted the rest of the ballots.
Well, but see, that's what the proponents of it are saying. So the detractors, the Bob Barr folks of the world, they're saying it would actually cost more like $10,000 because there's a whole, another computer run and time and all that kind of stuff. But so somewhere in between is probably the real number, but I would kind of think it'd be fairly low. And it doesn't matter anyway, because the people should be able to have their voice heard, especially in D.C., which is, the capital of the world these days, supposedly. And
The free world.
the free world, promoting democracy everywhere, but except in their own backyard, and which is quite sad. So if you're out there, folks, and you believe in democracy, I would say, write to Bob Barr, send me an email saying, hey, what are you doing? How dare you deny democracy to people in the United States? You can't treat D.C. like a foreign colony. Send it to Bob Barr, send it to our senators, and send it to our representatives. Most of them just sit on their hands because they know they don't have to do anything. People don't demand anything from them. I mean,
That's interesting. That kind of is a good segue into this article that our director, Loney Swerdlow, sent to our representative here in the 3rd District in Oregon, Representative Earl Blumenauer. Loney sent him a letter urging him to support Barney Frank's bill, House Bill 912, for medical marijuana. And he got a letter back from Earl Blumenauer, where Blumenauer doesn't really acknowledge that Loney asked about House Bill 912 at all. And he also doesn't acknowledge that we voted on it here in Oregon. I'll read Representative Blumenauer's letter in its entirety, and then we can dissect it. It says, Dear Mr. Swerd, of course his name's Swerdlow, but Dear Mr. Swerd, thank you for writing me concerning the legalization of marijuana and other drugs for medical use. I appreciate you contacting me about this sensitive issue. Recently, California voters passed a ballot initiative that's designed to ease restrictions on medical use of marijuana. Arizona voters approved a similar initiative, but also relaxed controls on heroin, LSD, and methamphetamines, is what Blumenauer says. Both of these initiatives are at odds with existing federal law and are opposed by the Clinton administration. Shortly after these initiatives were approved, White House drug czar General Barry R. McCaffrey announced that the federal government would prosecute doctors who prescribed illegal drugs. There are many unanswered questions about the medicinal uses of marijuana and other drugs. I will certainly keep your concerns in mind should legislation regarding this issue come before Congress. If I can be of further assistance, please feel free to contact my office. So first of all, though Representative Blumenauer knows that we voted on it here in Oregon, that doesn't matter. All he knows about is 2.5 years ago they voted on it in California and Arizona. And even though Loney's letter opened and closed saying, please become a sponsor of House Bill 912 for medical marijuana, Blumenauer doesn't acknowledge that and says, I will keep your concerns in mind should legislation regarding this issue come before Congress. Well, there is legislation there, and you asked him to be a sponsor.
yeah, it's
I get upset about these things.
Well, it's typical of these limousine liberal Democrats that they just don't want to offend anybody, and they want to make sure that they keep control of everything. And that's how they can make sure they don't offend folks and stay in office. I mean, it's like, I talked about recently California voters. It's like 2.5 years ago. I mean, in Arizona, it's just quite shocking that he has no idea whether this is a form letter that his staff composed 2 years ago and they haven't updated it. I'm not sure. Which is, if
it's dated March 29th,
yeah, no, I'm talking about
99.
The form letter though, his staff came up with 2 years ago. That's the case. Earl Blumenauer is got to do more than ride his bicycle. He's got to get out there and see what his staff is doing in his name. I'd be embarrassed if this letter was going out under my name. So Earl, I mean, I'm sure you're not watching, but if you are, you got to be embarrassed.
Earl, don't make us Earl.
But no, there are many unanswered questions about the uses of marijuana and other drugs. Well, there's many unanswered questions about the uses of any substance out there. We're not sure. I mean, every day is an experiment, as I'm sure Dr. Leveque will tell us. When they use medicines, it's every individual is different, and they're not sure. They're always finding new information about drugs we've had for a very long time, and the fact that he doesn't realize or doesn't acknowledge that House Bill 912 exists is pretty sad. But, well, so Dr. Beck, I mean, from what I state, is there every day, we find out new information about drugs that have existed for a long time? I mean, it's not like the book is closed, once they come out with the drug in the first place.
Well, I think it's very interesting that we know from historical records that cannabis has been used for literally thousands of years, and nobody has ever reported any bad effects from the use of it.
Yeah.
And when you compare that to tobacco or to alcohol, there's absolutely no comparison between tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana. There's just absolutely none whatsoever. And the statement that marijuana is a gateway drug to heroin or cocaine or whatever, this was verbally thrashed by the Institute of Medicine that said there was no evidence whatsoever that this was the case. So I think the main thing that we're doing is supporting General McCafferty and a whole bunch of DEA agents who are making very high salaries and don't want to give up the game, as you might say. So the people that are making money on the marijuana issue are the DEA agents and the people who grow and sell marijuana and don't pay any taxes on any aspect of the money that they make. And if they're caught, they get sent to a federal prison where it costs at least $40,000 a year to keep them in prison. So I guess the federal prisons, the guards in the prisons are probably also recipients of a lot of money from the marijuana business. So
exactly.
It's really a strange, absolutely bizarre situation that this has gone on, and I can't understand why some of these politicians in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere can't see this or understand it or whatever the right word is. I don't understand it either.
Yeah, I tend to think somewhat that it's just plain inertia for like the vast majority of politicians. You have some minority on one hand, they're just drug warriors, out and out moralistic drug warriors, and then you have a few politicians that say, we've got to basically say let people decide for themselves. For most of them, it's just like status quo. They don't want to change anything because this is the system they're used to operating in. I mean, I think if you brought in, an outside economist who has no exposure at all to, the drug underground substance trade in this world, I don't know where you'd find such an economist, but like the proverbial man from Mars or something coming in and take a look at this, and they would laugh at us and they'd say, well, the way your system is working, is supposed to work, and the way it's set up, people aren't paying taxes, they're making money, and therefore it's a drain on the government. It's a burden then on the rest of us because we have to pay more taxes because those folks aren't paying their fair share for the roads, the bridges, the sewer systems. And then we have the fact that it's costing us money. Not only they are paying their fair share, but it's costing us money to build the prisons, to pay the guards to staff these prisons,
the police to arrest them,
the
judges,
more courthouses they're building. That's one of the reasons they built this huge Mark Hatfield courthouse in downtown Portland here. The fact that they're arresting more people for drug crimes. If it's just a simple, interstate white collar crime stuff, we all probably need like one or two judges. And it's just something that I think an outside observer would look at. They would just scratch their head and say, well, what were you guys thinking of?
I think that given the end of Prohibition, we're going to look back on the outlawing of marijuana much the way that we currently look back on civil rights legislation and the Jim Crow laws. We look at the Jim Crow laws that kept non-European Americans in a subordinate state. And we look at that and think that was wrong. Those laws were wrong, and that was we're glad that that's over. Well, we're going to look back on these marijuana laws and do the exact same thing. And I think that, we want to urge our viewers out there to help us lead ourselves and our state out of this morass.
And what's that phone number, Paul?
That phone number is 235-4606. That's 235-4606. We have the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act petition currently in circulation. Would you like to tell them what the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act petition will do?
The Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, it will tax and regulate the sales of cannabis to adults through state stores, which are be operated like the state liquor stores that you go and buy liquor in, or bars for that matter, to adults over the age of 21. It'll also allow patients to get marijuana at cost in pharmacies. You can go into a pharmacy, buy it at cost, and and then doctors will be able to prescribe it instead of just having to grow your own or getting a caregiver to grow it for you. And what if you have a brown thumb instead of a green thumb? And we'll also allow our farmers to grow industrial hemp, so we can compete with the rest of the world industrial hemp. So that's industrial hemp, medicinal marijuana available at cost at pharmacies, and allow adults to purchase in state-operated stores for recreational purposes, with the proceeds going to the taxes on it, basically going to the state government to fund where the state government decides to fund.
Yeah, we decided we put 90% of the proceeds, and we expect there's going to be a lot of money generated by this. We can't really say what the amount will be right now, but let's leave that aside. Look, we denote that 90% goes into the state general fund. So it'll be up to the legislature to decide how to spend it. Hopefully they'll put it into education, but there'll be a lot less need for prisons and courts, so they won't be putting it there, hopefully. The other of the remaining 10%, 8% goes to fund drug abuse treatment programs for people with alcoholic and other substance abuse problems. And then 1% would go to a comprehensive drug education program for kids in schools to teach them about the dangers that substance abuse can have on their development. And finally, the final 1% goes to fund a state agricultural committee that will support and promote industrial hemp products made from fiber, protein, and oil, and their associated industries. So
yeah, and so we need your help, folks. That number is 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. And we have a website out there that Paul over here is real good. That's a pretty amazing website that Paul put stuff together on, including our shows.
That's right. You can watch this show on the internet.
Address?
It's www.crrh.org. And we've won every major web award. We were named by Netscape as What's Cool, by Project Cool as a Today Sighting, by Cool Side of the Day as a Cool Side of the Day, Choice Side of the Month. We've won most major awards for our websites, and I encode videos. So there's over 100 different videos you can watch there. Feature-length movies like the 30s classic Reefer Madness that shows that if a person smokes marijuana, they'll go crazy and kill their family and friends. And that's the 1930s movie that helped criminalize it, one of them anyway. And other feature-length films and documentaries like ABC's Pot of Gold about the economics of cultivating marijuana, CNN's Higher Times. There are literally 100 different shows. Currently we have about 25 of these shows on there and a backlog of another 20 to encode and put up. So we urge you to look at our website. You can actually print our petitions out from the website if you have a laser printer using the free Adobe Acrobat printer. So if you can't use the internet, though, call us at
503-235-4606. As we're getting used to here to having to always give the area code from now on.
That's true.
So 503-235-4606. Now, Dr. Leveque, I wanted to ask you, that's one thing that I've heard some doctors say is about whether or not marijuana, that it can causes depression with people trying to get off marijuana. Do you hear anything about that? Do you know anything about that?
I know a lot of people who smoke marijuana, and I have never heard that said.
Okay, well, there you have it, folks. It's never...
For the record, he's a professor of pharmacology and toxicology, so I don't think you'll find many people more qualified to make a statement.
I think, excuse me, but I think the comparison might be easy to make about what happens when somebody tries to quit smoking tobacco.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. So,
There's the patch and the chewing gum and the pills and all of those things they can take to quit smoking tobacco, I guess.
well, good.
For folks that have problems, there's also groups called Marijuana Anonymous out there. They aren't used by many people, but if you'd like to quit smoking marijuana, we recommend that you contact Marijuana Anonymous if that's what you want.
And if you feel you're having a problem, talk to somebody about it. I mean, we don't believe in substance abuse. We believe in adults choosing wisely and using wisely. That's what we believe in. But on that note, we ask you out there to write your congressperson and ask them to support House Bill 912, the federal version of medical marijuana introduced by Representative Barney Frank. That's House Bill 912. You write them, call them, ask them to support that. And as the Salem session winds down to an end, ask your local representatives to support the letter to the federal Congress asking them to support medical marijuana. What's that? Not a letter, but what's that called?
It's a House resolution.
That's it.
Gee, I can't remember the number right off the top of my head.
But if you write to or call your state senator here, they'll know what you're talking about. You say the House resolution supporting medical marijuana on a federal basis. It just says that, now here in Oregon that we have medical marijuana, the U.S. should catch up to us and the other 5 states that have supported medical marijuana and have voted for it overwhelmingly.
That's right. And so I'd like to urge you again, we want your help in this petition drive. We need about 100,000 signatures. We need 66,748 valid registered Oregon voter signatures. We need to turn in 100,000 to ensure that we qualify. So call us and get our petition at 503-235-4606. All of us are volunteers. We need your help. If you can sign it, if you can get your friends to sign it, even if you can just get 1 or 2 signatures, call us. Get that petition at 235-4606, then turn around and send it right back to us. If you've got the petition already, send it back to us right away. Don't delay. Don't forget about it. Don't stick it in the back bedroom drawer. Send it back to us so we can get it into our account and help build up to that 100,000 signatures so that we can force a vote to regulate the sale of marijuana and restore industrial hemp here in Oregon and restore freedom here in America. So call 235-4606 or the webpage www.crrh.org.
Well, good night, and thank you, Dr. Leveque, and thank you, Paul.
My pleasure. And thank you, viewers. Good night.